You meet someone, not online, not filtered, real life. They look at you just a second longer than normal. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to stay in your head all day. And somehow, by the time you reach home, you've already imagined a future with them. That's not romance. That's your brain running a prediction model with almost no data, and it's dangerously good at lying to you. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most crushes don't start with the other person. They start with you. Your brain fills in missing details, assigns personality, builds emotional attachment before the other person has even said 5 full sentences to you. A study from social psychology shows that humans form strong initial impressions within seconds and then spend the next days or weeks defending those impressions, even if they're wrong. So when you think, I like them because they're special, there's a high chance the truth is they're special because I decided to like them. And once that decision is made, a series of subtle psychological mechanisms quietly take over. Let's break it down. First, attention distortion. When you have a crush, your brain filters reality. Out of hundreds of people in a room, your focus locks on to one. Not because they're objectively the best, but because your brain tagged them as important. From that moment, everything they do feels amplified. They smile, it means something. They reply late, it means something. They say your name, it definitely means something. But here's the catch. Most of those meanings don't exist. Your brain is connecting random dots and then convincing you the pattern is real. It's the same cognitive bias that makes people see shapes in clouds, except this time the cloud can text back. Second, the illusion of rarity. When you have a crush, your brain quietly whispers, they're different. But statistically, that's unlikely. What's actually happening is exposure plus timing. You met them at the right moment, when you were emotionally open or slightly bored or unconsciously looking for something new. And your brain said, this one, pay attention. If you had met someone else in the same emotional state, there's a high chance the same process would have started. Different face, same story. That doesn't make your feelings fake, it makes them predictable. Third, emotional projection. This is where things get interesting. When you don't fully know someone, your brain doesn't leave the gaps empty. It fills them with ideal traits. You assume they're kind. You assume they understand you. You assume they think about you too. Not because they showed it, but because your brain prefers a complete story. And incomplete people are uncomfortable. So your crush becomes less of a real person and more of a customized character built from your preferences. You're not just liking them, you're liking your version of them. And that version is almost impossible for a real human to match. Which explains something strange. Why crushes often feel more intense than actual relationships. Because reality hasn't had the chance to ruin the fantasy yet. Fourth, intermittent reinforcement. This is where dark psychology quietly enters. Your crush doesn't give you consistent attention. Sometimes they reply instantly. Sometimes they disappear for hours or days. And instead of losing interest, you get more attached. Why? Because unpredictability increases emotional addiction. It's the same mechanism used in casinos. You don't win every time, but you win just enough to keep playing. Every notification becomes a reward. Every silence becomes a tension loop, and your brain starts chasing the next hit, not of love, of validation. So when you say, I can't stop thinking about them, what you might actually mean is, my brain is hooked on uncertainty. Fifth, the time investment trap. The longer you think about someone, the more valuable they seem. Not because they changed, but because you did. You invested time, energy, emotion, and the brain hates wasted investment, so it doubles down. You start justifying your feelings, defending them, expanding them, until walking away feels like losing something real, even if nothing real ever started. It's a quiet form of self-manipulation, and it's incredibly common. Now here's where the illusion cracks. Put your crush in a normal, boring, everyday situation. No music, no anticipation, no emotional buildup. Just reality. Conversations about routine things, awkward silences, different opinions. Suddenly, the intensity drops because crushes thrive in imagination but weaken under clarity. This is why distance often makes feelings stronger and closeness makes them more complicated, because distance protects the illusion and closeness tests it. Now zoom out for a second. In a world where most interactions happen through screens, where replies can be delayed, where attention is fragmented, crushes have become more intense than ever because the system now feeds on ambiguity. Seen messages, typing indicators, online status, tiny signals turned into emotional events, and your brain, built for survival, not accuracy, keeps trying to decode them like they matter more than they do. So the question isn't, why do I have a crush? That part is simple. The real question is, how much of what you feel comes from them, and how much comes from the story your mind refuses to stop telling? Because once you see the mechanism, it becomes harder to ignore one final possibility. Maybe the strongest part of your crush was never the person. It was the version of reality your brain created and chose not to question.